Good evening. Good evening. I'm Persia Nicole, and welcome to our first virtual Minorities and Mental Health event of 2022. It's all about New Year, new you. We say this every single year, get something new in your body, right? Thanks to our phenomenal sponsor, Sheppard Pratt, for helping us put this entire event together because tonight you are going to learn some tips on navigating through this brand new year, kicking off things the right way with the help of some amazing experts. You see these gorgeous ladies on the screen right now. Ladies, you're about to get information for this brand new year. First up, Ashley from Sheppard Pratt. Hey, Ash.
Hey. I'm Ashley. I am an adolescent social worker on the adolescent co-ed mood disorder unit at Sheppard Pratt. So pretty much we get a lot of kids with depression, anxiety, mood lability, all those different type of mood disorders. I used to work on the children's unit, so from kids like 4 to 12. So my entire social work career has been with children and adolescents. So that's pretty much my expertise area. And that's pretty much it from my career perspective.
All right. So next up, Aneeka from EndsideOut. Hey, Aneeka.
Hi. Thank you for having me. So I'm Aneeka. I'm a volunteer advisor with EndsideOut, which is a nonprofit here in Baltimore. My background is in public health, so I have my master's of science in public health with a focus on social and behavioral interventions, which is kind of a long way of saying I work on how to promote like health positive behaviors at a population level. And I'm currently studying to get my PhD in epidemiology, which is like how diseases play out in populations. So I come from like a research and public health kind of background.
I love it. So you're gonna be able to tell me about COVID, and once you get through all of this, what had happened with it. I'm gonna call you, girl, because I got some questions. I want to tell you really quick as you're joining us on Facebook Live, on YouTube, 92Q Jam's Facebook page, 92Q.com, wherever you're watching us at. Ask some questions in the comments as we're having this conversation. We'll hop it up on the screen and try to get an answer for you. First things first, let's kick off this conversation, much needed conversation, talking about something we all do. Most of us all do, and that's New Year's resolutions, right? Brand new year. Everybody says every year, I'm going to do this. Every year I say I'm going to lose weight, honey, and I end up eating a Twinkie. So I just hope at this point, okay? Have you ladies had New Year's resolutions? Ashley, did you do one?
I try to make a list. So I try to do a list of at least 10. So like on December 31st, I'll set different goals and then cross them off as the year goes along and kind of see which ones I did or which ones I didn't. So my list is pretty much kind of trailed out through the entire year. There's no specific date on it.
Yeah, because I was actually thinking, I feel like sometimes New Year's resolutions like really mess up your mental. Because, right, like when you're about to end December, you get into a brand new year, you're 1 week into January, you're like, oh my, I ain't lose 1 pound yet. And you're like, what is going on, right? Yeah. If you give yourself a 6-month goal or a 3-month goal, like forget the New Year resolution, then it kind of helps along the way, right?
Absolutely. I think kind of a lot of people jump into it and feel like they have to be perfect. Like I have to have such and such or lose 20 pounds in a month when like the purpose is to set realistic goals like for yourself. Like if you know that in a month you probably won't be in a space to completely give up snacks, like let's set a goal around that. Like, okay, I want to cut down on snacks like once a week or twice a week. And so when you set a goal that's realistic for yourself, those are the goals that are more likely to be met opposed to the vague goals. Like I want to go to the gym all year. You might have kids, you might be taking care of someone, demanding work schedule. And then when these goals aren't met, it feels like a failure when it's not. It's just not a goal that's attainable for you at the moment.
Yeah. Aneeka, what do you think about New Year's resolutions?
I think I'm big on just adding 1 or 2 like positive behaviors as opposed to trying to take away or change anything. So maybe that's something like, I'm going to make sure I have a vegetable with at least 1 meal. That doesn't mean I have to do anything differently than what I do already. I'm just adding 1 thing, or maybe I'll go for a 10-minute walk at lunch, something like that. So instead of sort of resolving to be different or resolving to do things differently, I think of it as like I have my world and my life and things that work for me, and I'm just going to add 1 thing or 2 things to it. And so that doesn't feel like that I'm stuck in sort of competing against myself, but rather I'm just like I'm just making things better and adding more positive things that are going to make me feel better or, just overall be able to like do life and work and all those things a little bit better.
Yeah, so you should already be adding that to your notes right now as you're checking us out live, because instead of New Year's resolutions, we're going to have 3-month, 6-month resolutions, make it more realistic and add different things that is really going to happen. Because if you have the same New Year's resolution for the past 5 years and it hasn't happened yet, let's get more realistic. Okay?
For sure.
Ashley, let's talk about how we can stick to our goals. I know we talked about also kind of putting like a timeline, but pretty much something to help us have a better new year and help build ourselves accountable.
Sometimes it could help to kind of have like an accountability partner. So kind of someone that can hold you accountable while you hold them accountable. A lot of people will go on like health diets with like their coworker. You're with these people maybe 5 days out of the week. You guys eat lunch at the same place. So even small things like, okay, well, you make the meal for whatever Tuesday, and then I'll do it for Wednesday. Another thing to sticking with it is kind of like making like a reward system for yourself. And so it's kind of like behavioral modification in a sense, like, okay, well, if I eat healthy 3 times out of this week, I'm going to treat myself to like my favorite ice cream or something. So you're still creating a balance, but you're also, working to achieve a goal. And like I said, I think the major thing is not making the goal so far-fetched, because you can also overwork yourself to try to get to that goal. So if I set a goal, like I'm going to lose like 50 pounds in 2 months, and I'm going to diet, and I'm going to do all these things that I have the capability to do. If you don't meet that goal, there is no kind of structured plan to do so. And so if you don't go to the gym for a week, you could be hard on yourself. I didn't go this week, so now I have to start over. And it kind of just pushes things out. So I think like being set in goals. Also, we should give ourselves like grace and time for flexibility, like an understanding that, a plan B. Okay, I have kids in case my kids get sick or I can't go. This will be my backup. I can set up a home gym. I'll get some mats, and kind of just having various plans of action to stay in those goals. And I know that's a lot. So pretty much in a nutshell, you can get an accountability partner, set up alternative options. And again, the major thing is like staying in that realistic mindset, not making goals like too far-fetched. So that's pretty much my take on it.
Yeah. Michelle says, agree. Absolutely. I think we all agree, especially since the pandemic. I think it's taught us all how to also have ourselves as accountability partners. You said have the yoga mat in the house. Like we've learned different things to do now to keep ourselves active, and how to kind of, learn to be more in tune with ourselves, which also will help our mental state sometimes. But then sometimes, because, a lot of us have social issues with the kids. And Ashley and Aneeka, I'm pretty sure you all have, tons of more info about this from the line of work that you do, working with kids and mental health. Like, what is some of the biggest social issues that you've seen thus far since this pandemic? Aneeka, let's talk about that.
So honestly, looking at, not just beyond like the scope of my work, but looking at kind of what's been published and listening to doctors and experts all over the place, the pandemic has taken a toll on kids in so many different ways, from mental health, learning gaps. We know that schools were the basis for access to services beyond just education. So like meals, nursing, things like that. So it's really been just kind of a broad spectrum impact on kids. And then obviously COVID itself can have an impact if kids are infected. So it's just this like multi-pronged issue. And I don't think there's really like a single solution. I mean, if there were, we wouldn't be in this kind of situation. But I think the sort of what I've seen, and like, I think the kind of way to move forward is really situation based, and kind of what are the resources around you, depending on like where you live, for your kids, and sort of what are their specific needs. Like someone who's much younger will have very different needs than someone who's like kind of in adolescence, things like that. So it's certainly a complicated situation. I think there's so many different dimensions to speak to as well in this.
Yeah. Ashley, can you give some parents? I'm a mom with a 6-year-old son, but help me and all my friends and everybody else watching it. Really try to help our kids cope with this continued issue that we've carried from 2020 and then 21 and now 2022. Helping them stay engaged and staying connected with the world. Like, what are some tips you can give us to help our kids?
Just finding it's hard to find like COVID friendly stuff to do, like in regard to engagement and interaction. But some of the things can be like seasonal stuff. So, like, one of the things that are still happening is like ice skating. You know, getting a kid active, that's something that they can do with their friends. Even from a technology perspective, I know we're trying to shorten technology, but a kid could have like a virtual movie night with one of their friends. Things like bake-offs, one home and the next home, and then maybe like they swap cookies or something like that and talk about, you know, who's the best. But I also think from a parental perspective, really processing and understanding that your child might be a little bit socially immature. Especially from what I've seen, I completely forget that my kids who come in who are in the 10th grade, they were in the 8th grade, like virtually. And
Yeah.
so when they're talking about different things, like, oh, Miss Ashley, like my middle school friends, in my mind, I'm like, that was like years ago. But socially, that's when they stopped. So we see a lot of, you know, social issues. So just checking in with your kids about their social interactions in general. A lot of these kids have immense social anxiety. I mean, popular kids are super anxious now. Kids who weren't super anxious felt comfortable with virtual schools. So just as a parent, recognizing, you know, their social immaturity is low, maybe kind of working with them on, I guess, some of the things socially that you've experienced in particular grades, kind of normalizing what they're going through. Because to go from 8th to 10th grade is a big jump. Talking to them about what 9th grade was like, you know, what changes they would have gone through in 9th grade. In the 10th grade, what are the expectations? How is it like from a school/friendship perspective? So just giving your kids also insight on experiences that they didn't have.
Yeah, and then for the kids who, you know, missed like their freshman year of high school, kids who miss prom, like, you know, things that aren't going to happen again for them, like to even like bounce back from that. Like, I don't even know how kids do it. I felt so bad.
Yeah, it's a lot. And they have a lot of remorse and feel very sad about that as well. It's tough to have a conversation about that with the kids because they are the only one who kind of experience that. Like I said, their peer relationship and contact is very crucial at this point because they're all in the same space. So also as a parent, being very cautious of being overbearing and kind of like over talking about it excessively, like, oh my gosh, I know you didn't have prom and it sucks that you didn't have prom and I'm so upset that you didn't have prom. Like, they know they didn't have prom.
Right.
And so like being optimistic about what's next, you know, have you guys started talking about college applications, or how do you feel about going to the 8th grade, and just implementing some optimism, because it's easy to, just as much as they've missed things, kind of continually talk about things that they've missed as well.
Yeah, and I love how you gave them new options, because this whole thing is about new year, new you. You've done this before. Here's what you can do moving forward. So let's see. Michelle says kids want to be playing their sports and being with friends. So parents need to discuss safety in the entire process of engagement. Yeah, it cannot be before. The conversation is different. Talking and communicating to kids is extremely important. Absolutely. I agree 100%. And like you said, Ashley, the communication has to be there. Instead of looking at all the negative aspects of it, we have to think about what can be positive coming out of this. You missed the problem. Okay, cool. But what's going to be next? Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Aneeka, since we're talking about the kiddies, let's talk about this amazing program you guys have, the Know Your Health program, Inside Out. Let's talk about that.
Yes. So Know Your Health is one of our signature programs at EndsideOut. It is for school-age children. It's based in the schools, and basically it focuses on evidence-based nutrition and exercise practices, and it comes from a behavior change lens. So rather than just telling kids, like, this is a vegetable, it has nutrients, which is, you know, at a certain age, not appropriate. Instead, we sort of challenge what can be seen as cool and socially acceptable, and why it is cool to, you know, eat your vegetables and go out and exercise, and whether that's running around or doing yoga or whatever makes you feel good. And we really take a lens of kind of helping children be more in touch with what feels right to them. So, you know, I don't know if this is true for you, but at least for me, like I love a good brownie at the end of the day or a good cookie.
Yes, it's true.
Always good with that. But I'm not gonna have, a couple of cookies and try to go for a run. So that's just not, I'm not gonna feel good, right? So sort of tapping into that rather than being restrictive or, telling anyone what they are not allowed to eat, but recognizing that both exercise or movement and food are these really complicated social things that bring us joy for different reasons and make us feel good for different reasons. And just tapping into that, exploring that, what are ways that we can eat that maybe make us feel a little bit better in the long run, while still never telling anyone what they should or shouldn't be doing. That's kind of the goal of the program. And it spans right from the very little ones all the way through the 8th grade.
Yeah, let me go ahead and put my son in that program, honey. I'm trying to get his and he swears broccoli is a tree. He's like, I don't like trees. I don't like trees. I'm like, oh, Jesus. All right. So while we're talking about the fitness and kids and things like that, what is the relationship, Aneeka, between exercise and endorphins? And can you explain exactly what endorphins is?
Yeah, so endorphins are a hormone that are produced in the body, and they're kind of touted as like our pain, like our natural painkiller. So they're just hormones that make us feel good. And they're released during a number of different activities, and exercise is one of them. So that's sort of why we say like a runner's high, or like why you feel good when you've moved your body in a way that's sort of intentional. And that's one of the reasons. But your brain produces a hormone and it makes you feel good. Sort of like your own body's reward for doing something that is like beneficial to it. And that's effectively like one of the reasons why exercise can be so positive towards well-being or mental health, and kind of we talk about like protective behaviors in that like it helps protect you against like adverse outcomes, like protect you against feeling sort of down or sad. It's not in any way, I'm not in any way trying to suggest that, just going for a run or something like that's going to solve all your problems. But it's definitely just one of those behaviors that can be added to sort of your toolkit, if you will, for times where you might be feeling more depressed or more anxious, or just like having more kind of negative emotions. It's certainly just a tool in that toolkit. And that's kind of what we try to promote when we talk about these like health promoting behaviors and things you can do to sort of make yourself feel a little bit better.
Yeah, I love it. So we are learning about new year, new you around here. If you're just chiming in, welcome to our first Minorities in Mental Health of 2022 in this brand new year. Big shout out to our sponsor, Sheppard Pratt, for teaming up with us again for this phenomenal event. We have Ashley here, Aneeka here from EndsideOut, and of course, Sheppard Pratt over there at Ashley. And, this conversation is definitely much needed, but I think a lot of people don't understand that they are being affected by mental health, probably right now as we're having a conversation. And then they'll see like little trigger things, and they're like, okay, well, what is this? Is something wrong with me? Is something not wrong with me? Am I just having a stressful day? What are some warning signs in mental health to look out for in yourself or a loved one, Ashley?
I would say just paying attention to anything that's kind of not in their day-to-day from what you've observed, which pretty much is kind of knowing the person. You don't have to know the person extensively, but body language, any changes in that, isolation, a lack of doing things that they enjoy, even down to communication and conversation. If things kind of get short, or if it's someone that doesn't, live in the home with you, did they kind of cease or diminish communication, quickly, and also checking in. So again, communication is a big piece of it. If there's something that you notice that might not be normal, or that someone might not be in a good mental space, ask. A lot of the times, especially here with my adolescent patients, a lot of the times in their family meetings, they're just saying like they want to be checked in on, and as parents, it's hard to find the balance, especially of an adolescent. Like, are you just having teenage behaviors, or is your mental health being impacted? And the only way that you'll know is to ask and to actually communicate. Now, the honesty level of that is different, but from my personal experience, kids love when you ask. It makes them feel that, their behaviors are being observed. It makes them feel like they're not invisible. And then when you are checking in, it makes them kind of feel secure in knowing that, okay, my parent cares about what I'm going through or what I'm experiencing. Even if they don't overtly show it, from my experience, it absolutely makes a difference. So checking in, again, if you don't ask, you don't know. It might be something that you're doing wrong, or something as simple as like saying, hey, is there anything that is bringing you down, or something that we can talk about or that we can get support about? So just primarily communicating and just being vigilant, especially with children who live in the home.
Yeah. Jamie, I know we right with it right here, Jamie. I agree to 100%. And also right now with everything that's going on, in addition to the signs that you can look out for, sometimes you don't really know how to have a conversation with yourself, right? And to try to even get to yourself to get that mental help. Like, okay, I'm going to call this therapist and try to get this help, or I'm going to do this for myself. Like, what are some things you feel like the first step for yourself you should take? Maybe Aneeka, can you answer this one? Some different first steps we should maybe take to developing a better relationship with ourselves so we can get to the step to be a better person, or a brand new you for the new year.
I mean, honestly, maybe just, I think like being realistic about sort of how we like what we're feeling, what's going on, things like that. And what are those like barriers to achieving behaviors or doing things that, we want to do, and what are the things that facilitate them. So that's something we talk about a lot, like in public health in general, is like, how can we make things more accessible, like make positive behaviors a little bit more accessible. And simply, I think being realistic about like what helps and what hinders us in doing things. So if, we're feeling stressed and maybe we want to seek like professional services, like what are the things that are going to help us with that? Like maybe we don't have it in our bandwidth right now. So is it going to be like calling or texting a friend and saying, hey, do you know anyone like who's seeing patients? Or if that's like a little bit less maybe serious, but we still want to do some like health promoting behaviors, it can be as easy or simple, rather, not necessarily easy, but as straightforward as leaving, your gym clothes out, or even sleeping in them. Like, so then the first thing you do in the morning is like, oh, I'm already in my leggings, I'm gonna go for a walk, right? Yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be these like very complex or like inaccessible behaviors, but just little facilitators, like small little steps that we can take to make things easier for ourselves, to make feeling our best, achieving those like health behaviors as easy as possible. It really doesn't have to be complicated to be good for you.
Yeah.
Persia, can I follow up on what Aneeka said? I don't, if no, let me know. I just wanted to touch base on that also, and kind of to add in like giving yourself grace. So I think a lot of the times, a lot of people can come down super hard on themselves. I'm not doing this. I should be doing this. And just giving yourself grace in the things that you want to change. It's okay to identify these are the things that I'm going through, right? But giving yourself grace and knowing, in this aspect, I am going through a lot. I am stressed at work. I am, transitioning in this aspect. My child is going to daycare for the first time, or, just things like that. And giving yourself not even an excuse, but just giving yourself some grace to kind of take some of that pressure, off. And then, looking at what didn't work in the pandemic. So I think we had a whole, 2 years, a year, however long we're in it, because I forget, to, maybe go back and think about what worked or what didn't work in the beginning of the pandemic. What did you learn about yourself? What worked when you were virtual, even what worked with you and your children, and then just build off there. You literally have an at-home, reference of what can be changed in that aspect. Also, initially, just giving yourself that grace of like, this was hard, this was tough, these are the things that did not work, and in moving forward, maybe I can maneuver around this for it to work. So what Aneeka said, but also added into like, give yourself a little bit of mercy.
Yeah. And then also watching virtual events like this. This is a great first step. I mean, like really, like if you woke up this morning and you were feeling depressed or you had anxiety about whatever, and then you turned this on YouTube or Facebook or whatever it is, this is a great first step, because now you have some great tips on how you can be better for tomorrow. It's a brand new year, honey. New year. That's what I'm doing, right?
Absolutely.
What are some programs that Inside Out has to help mental health and beyond?
So we really, as I was saying, like we try to tap into how we can use like simple behaviors that are within kids' control to kind of help them understand how they feel. And so though we don't for our little ones like directly work in mental health, nor could we, provide like direct mental health services. What we do is try to have kids just be really tapped into like what is going on, what are things that like they are within their control that kind of maybe make them feel a little bit better. And something we also establish is kind of like what's that tipping point where just like, maybe adding health promoting foods or exercising, drinking more water, things like that are not enough. Because there's a difference between just mental well-being and keeping yourself feeling good, doing all those healthy things versus like having, a clinical condition, a clinical illness that would require professional services. So that's not my arena. My arena is the like health promotion at kind of a global scale. And so, but helping kids be tapped into like, what does that line look like? It's different during the pandemic because we're all a little bit more towards the like stress, anxiety side of things just by living through like a global crisis. So that is really our goal, is to help kids use like food, water, exercise or movement to help just be a little bit more in touch with health and well-being overall.
Which will help that mental health, honey. I'm telling you, it all comes together. It's all
connected.
Yeah. Ashley, let's talk about some services and programs that Sheppard Pratt offers.
My expertise is the inpatient side, so you don't really, that's not a step that you start at. Some kids do need that additional support. Sheppard does have the psychiatric urgent care that used to be quick, the crisis walk-in clinic, which everyone knows it as. I believe we're still doing like virtual assessments and consultations where you don't have to physically come in. You can get a virtual psychiatric assessment. Sheppard Pratt also, for adolescents and adults, there's like a day hospital, so a partial hospitalization program where Monday through Friday for 2 weeks, so 10 days, you come in almost like a school day or work day where you go to therapy groups, you have a psychiatrist, you have kind of like a social work therapist, which is kind of my role, where you get support that might not be at that inpatient level. Even when you're getting the evaluation, it doesn't mean that they're going to say, hey, you need to come in inpatient. They may be able to give you referrals to, several places or, let you know what they're thinking in regard to your mental health state, different avenues and channels. So there are like outpatient resources that, in contacting the psychiatric urgent care, you might be able to get more support and services. From my end, from the inpatient side, if you bring your child to the psychiatric urgent care or they come from an emergency room, they will be in an inpatient setting where they're getting a multitude of therapeutic services. I mean, we have like yoga therapy, music therapy, occupational therapy. There's art therapy, I believe, for the kids. So just also knowing about and, asking questions and changing kind of the narrative of mental health. It's not hospital gowns and like socks and walking around in a room, even for adults as well. So maybe, just getting more information on what that looks like, what units they have available, where you would be. So the first point of contact, I think, would just be calling and asking those questions.
Absolutely. Of course, you can go to sheppardpratt.org. The website is right here at the bottom of the screen. And also you can call the number at 410-938-5000. Aneeka, what is the website for Inside Out?
It is just EndsideOut.org. So that's EndsideOut.org.
All right, ladies, thank you so much for taking your time out tonight to join us. Minorities and Mental Health, New Year, New You. And I know we're about to be in February, but Happy New Year.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
You get to a certain point, like, can you stop saying Happy New Year? But Happy New Year. I hope you all have a great New Year, and I hope that everybody else has an amazing night. All right. I'll see you guys later.